obviously there's some new stuff. I've been off for a couple of days because of the holidays, and I'd almost forgotten about this dipshit. And while I was busy wrapping and unwrapping presents and doing all kinds of stuff like that, look, Biden family biz scheme exposed. Well, it's covered now. They must have got him while I was looking the other way, right? I can't imagine, that they would do another. He would go on Rob Schitt's show again on Newsmax and not come out and with new information. What are the odds? The title of this one: This Stinks to High Heaven. James Comer on Biden checks. Oh, they must have more. These can't be the same checks we saw before. The ones from his brother and his sister-in-law. Obviously, this has got to be something new because asked and answered kind of dumb. Let's find out. I'm curious.
Congressman Comer, good to have you on. You've now spoken.
Okay, you can't start with a lie right away.
Biden associates and witnesses. You've laid out the Biden scheme to sell power very clearly.
Oh, piss off. Again, there is no situation where money laundering is as simple as I'll write you a check. This is just dumb.
Showing these payments, the checks we have here.
Yeah, both of them. What are the dates? So you managed to find the only checks that were written to him of any substantial amount of money in between, the times when he was not serving in office and when he ran, like the narrowest time in his life.
James Biden to Joe Biden for loans that didn't exist. A witness you talked
to cites evidence not presented. Yes, if I may.
Recently, named Carol Fox, who was the trustee for the bankruptcy filed by a company called AmeriCorps Health.
Right, that's how you know about these checks in the first place. That's how they got the money to pay Joe back because, and again, it's AmeriCorps. I don't know, sounds Chinese.
Said that James Biden promised AmeriCorps access to a future Biden administration and the highest levels of government, and that his brother Joe Biden had been made aware of AmeriCorps, the business, which would be made profitable when it could become part of the Biden platform. I mean, this is so blatant. What
it did? Yeah, it didn't happen. This is before he was even running. This is after he left office. Again, if James makes promises that Joe isn't going to keep, that's on James, not on Joe.
Happening here, if this isn't impeachable, what is?
Here's what is. He would have been still in office and not during the 2-year window where he wasn't in office and wasn't even running for office. And he would have made those promises himself while he was in office and changed policy or funding to benefit this company. That's what it would be.
Well, this is Securities Fraud 101. Obviously, James Biden's the one that's going to take the hit, but Joe Biden knew all about it. Joe Biden met with the AmeriCorps people. That's part of how they operated their business model, Rob. They would either the president's son or brother.
Okay, so let me get this right. Joe Biden doesn't meet with them when he's in office. Once he's out of office, at some point he meets them. They think they're going to get something from him because James is working with them. It doesn't happen. Joe is aware of who they are and still doesn't give them any help. What in this shit?
Approach these people, and then they would bring Joe along. Joe would either call him on the phone, or Joe would either say hi to him, or come over.
What? He said hi?
Their hands, or have lunch at Cafe Milano.
No, they didn't have. The AmeriCorps people didn't have lunch with him at Cafe Milano. You're thinking of the World Food Bank thing, and then other senators over the years. Jesus Christ.
Always be Joe Biden contact after the initial contact, and then the money would start changing hands. So this is another example of how the Bidens influence peddled, and another.
Again, influence peddling, if you're famous and you're just like, let's say you're in Hollywood and you're, somebody, influence peddling in Hollywood is called networking. You know somebody, you don't have leverage. You can't blackmail somebody. You can't limit funding for them or on their movie or anything. But you know somebody, and you're like, hey, this person could get me into the right parties, so I'll hang out with this person, or maybe I'll, send them a nice gift and kind of buy their favor to get into the better Oscar parties, hoping that it will help me in business later. That's networking. Networking is not illegal, never has been, and it's never guaranteed. The idea that that AmeriCorps actually was going to sort of benefit from post vice presidency having Joe Biden be a supporter of theirs because he was going for, he was pushing for a public option or something, and at some point they believed that they could be a part of, one of the potential things for the government if they eventually got to that thing, and if they had him on the board as a former vice president who was shooting for the public option, when they sold their idea to states or to the federal government later on, they could go, yeah, well, he likes us because we're trying to do this thing or whatever. That's networking. That's not influence peddling. Influence peddling is if you actually can influence the process. You have to be in office. Or even if you're in office, you have to be in a position where you can determine the outcome. And at no point was he, especially during this window. Jesus Christ, he wasn't even going to run. And the idea that he would run again for a few years especially was just, nobody even thought of it. He was a long shot when he started his campaign.
We know Joe Biden is complicit in this. The $200,000 check that you just showed on your screen, that came from AmeriCorps Health. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We have Jim Biden's personal bank records. We know that for about a 60-day period, he had about a $2,000 to $4,000 balance in his checking account. Then one day he gets the $200,000 wire from AmeriCorps Health, so it goes from $2,000 to $202,000. He writes Joe a check the same day he got the wire for $200,000
because he borrowed it from them. It was a loan. He didn't even get paid. It was a loan from AmeriCorps.
Joe Biden for the exact same amount. Yeah. So that wasn't real hard to trace. You didn't have to have.
Also, so what? Seriously. What would Joe Biden have been doing when those checks passed through that account and to him at all about AmeriCorps? Seriously. He was not serving in office. If anything, it would have been to buy him as a lobbyist at best. At the best. And it didn't happen. He didn't go to bat for them. That wasn't the point. James Biden got money from them and he repaid his loan to his brother with that money. Because he had to. And also, he got $600,000. He didn't have $3,000 to $4,000 in that account by itself. That's nonsense. Because they know from the lawsuit that AmeriCorps had given him $600K that year in loans. This was just like the second or third one.
A fancy finance degree to trace that. But again, it shows Joe Biden made $200,000 from his family's influence peddling scheme.
No. How do you peddle influence when you're not in office? He didn't even have any family members in office. There are no other Bidens in office.
It's so clear, and yet we have all of the whole of the establishment press has ignored all this.
Yes. What are they not? What are they not paying attention to? The 2-year window when Joe wasn't in office, where his brother paid him back a loan payment that he got from saying to AmeriCorps that he could, I guess they have friends in high places, that never came to pass because Joe didn't make those calls. And AmeriCorps collapsed because they didn't get influence peddled.
And every Democrat in Congress is acting like this isn't real.
It is real. It's just not material. Again, this is the difference between information and evidence. This is just information. No one gives a fuck. Why should we? Look at the date on the check. This is so weird. Do you know how easy this would be if AmeriCorps had gotten some sweetheart account, from the U.S. government just 2 years prior? And then a couple of years later, they're feeding money through the brother to make up for that money that was supposed to be paid, right? That the idea is like, look, we can't pay you while you're in office, but after you leave office, we're going to throw you some cash on the regular. Now, it'll be chump change compared to what you're making giving speeches and with your book, and it will make you an unnecessary target for some sort of investigation later. But help us out. Like, none of this makes any sense.
What's it like to fight a fight where it doesn't matter what you come back with?
You're always punching yourself in the dick.
There's just no ability for them to even acknowledge reality.
What's the reality? Guys, anybody in the chat room have a problem recognizing that James Biden... Anybody have a problem with the reality of this? James Biden wrote a check, and so did Sarah Biden, to Joe as a loan repayment because he'd been covering their bills for a while, and they just sent him a lump sum saying, thanks, okay, there it goes. It's your money because we borrowed it. We're okay. We'll be all right. Anybody think the checks are fake? That reality? Anybody? Has anybody seen a Democrat deny the reality of either of those checks? Anybody? That's the reality. So what you're telling me is reality. Nope. What about the fact that they can't that AmeriCorps paid James Biden? Anybody else? Anybody have a problem recognizing that reality? Exactly. Now, of all of us and these two dickheads, who has a problem recognizing who was president in 2017 and 2018? Does Rob, honest to God, at this point I'm questioning whether, because I've seen Greg Kelly go, 2018, but, like we've seen some people acknowledge the dates on these checks before, but has Rob Shit ever done it? Have we ever watched him? I don't remember having seen it. He may have at one point, but he's certainly not now.
I mean, it's hard to believe what I've witnessed over the last 9 months with the press corps.
Right.
We bring forth new evidence.
No, again, information is not evidence.
On a weekly basis.
Right, and none of it is evidence.
It's damning evidence. I mean,
no, it isn't.
$200,000 came from influence peddling.
No, it didn't. It didn't. Even if James promised it, they didn't get it. He wasn't, honest to God, AmeriCorps went out of business. Joe Biden never went to bat for them. There was no influence, and there was none to be had.
And the fact that they're trying to say it was a loan, but they don't have any documentation or a check to prove it. If you paid me back, Rob, $200,000, then I should have a check to you for $200,000 at some point before you pay me back.
Unless you're talking about smaller payments over time or use of property, use of a house or whatever, any of that shit over time that they didn't do it. And that's kind of how family loans work. Yeah.
Every American understands this, and the media thinks they can keep printing no evidence, no evidence, no evidence.
No, it's pretty easy. Just say no evidence. This isn't evidence. It isn't evidence. It isn't. Ugh.
Going to believe it, but 70% of the people realize that this stinks to high heaven, and they appreciate the fact that somebody's investigating that.
No, I think even the ones who wish somebody was investigating it, who actually do think something's wonky, they know that Comer and Jordan particularly are fucking morons. The worst people to go after this. This is terrible.
Somebody's the House Oversight Committee.
And you know what? And the truth is that...
Yeah. Tell me what the truth is, Rob. Rob, come on. Let's hear the truth.
In order to help keep this man in power, they are selling out decades of credibility.
Yeah, that's right. Who trusts the news anymore? Why won't they admit that this is for work done while he was vice president, with the promise of work he would do when he got into the presidency through, I guess, a rigged election that AmeriCorps participated in, Who is behind the finances of AmeriCorps, Dominion voting systems? There, I said it, and that settles it. I just...
Decades. I mean, these establishments have been around for a long time in this
Unlike Newsmax,
country.
which just feels like it's been around for a long time.
Their TV or print, and they have been building that credibility for decades. And to see them doing this in this moment, to me, as somebody that actually went to journalism school.
Notice he didn't say graduated from. It's a weird...
20 years ago.
Yeah, okay, so you forget a lot in the time.
That's why I keep talking about it, because I can't really believe that it's happening.
Well, it kind of like how we feel about you considering yourself a journalist in front of your oddly manga Ghost in the Shell mega dystopian city background.
Can't believe that all of these massive media companies that are owned by these massive corporations have been handed a mandate that they just cannot talk about this explosive story.
Or, if I may, just follow me on this. It's possible. Let's say on the one hand, let's Occam's rubber mallet this a little bit. On the one hand, giant organizations worth billions of dollars, with decades and decades of credibility on the line, that consider themselves part of the esteemed history of media and journalism throughout all of them see this story, and they've been told by the Democrats, don't you dare go after this guy, or else. And so they're like, oh, we're not going to look into the deep story behind a check written from Joe Biden's brother to him for services not rendered in 2018 that technically is nobody's fucking business and is not a thing, because we're afraid the Democrats are going to kill us. That's the one possibility. That's the one you're presenting here. Or the other possibility, and work with me on this, I know it's a lot, but on the Occam's razor side of things, both of you are dipshits, and you are trying to shove your Vienna sausage into a food processor and have it not frappéd. You are trying to crowbar this square peg into a round hole, and you don't know how you keep ending up with splinters. You are dense and stupid and caught in a cycle of audience capture, because your audience, if you said any of this doesn't sound wonky, every time you've even ventured towards the I'm going to need more information, you get death threats in your email on the regular from what shit viewers you have. And it's so bad that you're following this fuckhead down a dark path in the woods. Maybe you're dumb. Maybe the Occam's razor side is both of you are just stupid. One versus the other. Billions of dollars in credibility and stuff like that, but they're being threatened by Joe Biden to keep their mouth shut, or you're stupid. I'm going to go with the simple. I'm going to go, the evidence points me to you're both dumbasses.
This real evidence. One thing the media loves to repeat is that a lot of this money came in after Joe Biden left the vice presidency.
Well, after he was no longer vice president. It didn't come in weeks after. It didn't come in right after. It didn't even come in back the first 3 to 6 months after. It was other stuff. The deals that it came from didn't even start until after he was no longer vice president. Stupid. That's why it's so dumb. If James Biden had this deal in place for like years, first of all, if he'd had this deal in place before Joe left the vice presidency, and the company had gone under because it didn't get the influence, you're another level of dickhead for just bringing this up. But the fact is, these are deals that happened after he was no longer in office at all. Like, there wasn't even a presupposition that he could help while he was in office.
A recent testimony from the whistleblower show emails involving Hunter and his partners working on deals for CEFC. This is the China money here.
Right, which isn't, for the record, the money that came in through these sides of things. Yeah, okay.
2016, when Biden was still in office.
Right, March 22nd, 2016, when he's still in office, but he's, technically speaking, he's a lame duck vice president. He's not going to be. This is the beginning of it, right? This is the draft in March. Okay. So this deal isn't even going to get off the ground until it is constitutionally impossible for Joe Biden to stay in office.
Working on this while Biden was in office. The money comes in 2017.
Right. And the CEFC didn't even rush this. I will show you one thing, though. Hold on. Yeah, so here you go. 1 second. There you go. I'll open this guy up, and then we'll go to... Yeah, 2018. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll just go in here. Okay. Yeah, let's go to this guy. Yeah, no, wait, 1 second. Let's go with the timing of it. So the idea is, and Rob Schitt wants us to run on this idea, that Joe Biden, this deal started in the final year of the Obama presidency, didn't even get off the ground until after they left. And when there's no influence to be had at all, when Joe is not running, by the way, by May, they knew he was not running at all. He couldn't be vice president for Hillary Clinton. That's not a possibility. You done, son, unless you run for president. Okay, so here you go. Meanwhile, during the Trump presidency, during China paid Trump millions in rent. Then he left the White House. During the 4 years that Donald Trump occupied the White House, the state-owned Industrial and Commercial Bank of China paid him an estimated $7 million to rent space in Trump Tower. Despite the extraordinary circumstances of the deal involving the government of China, the President of the United States, and millions of dollars, the Trump family portrayed the agreement as standard business transaction. Previously unreported documents call that transaction into question. Lending records show that the Chinese bank abandoned Trump Tower around the time Trump left the White House. The bank's departure seemed to come suddenly in the first half of 2021, less than 2 years after the bank exercised what Eric Trump, the former president's son, described as a 5-year extension. It's hard to consider either of those developments, the lease extension or the sudden departure, without wondering whether China was trying to curry favor. There's no evidence that geopolitics played a role in the deal at first. Reports of the arrangement first surfaced in September of 2008, when Trump was merely a real estate developer eager to tout some good news amid troubled times. It's a great honor to house one of the world's finest banking institutions in Trump Tower, he told Real Estate Weekly. We look forward to a long and happy relationship. It was, by the way, 2008 is exactly when they started, when the CCP started clawing into people. Retrospectively looking back at it, this was part of a strategy they were putting in place. It was not an accident. They were doing it in people, like not just people of political influence, but cultural influence in the United States, that they were trying to like curtail them and move them to say nice things about China, that kind of stuff. I'll show you the Industrial Bank of China. Trump told Forbes in 2015, when they're leading in the polls, I have the best tenants of the world in this building. 3 years later, ICBC signed a new deal to lease space in a non-Trump building on 6th Avenue, securing 99,000 square feet for or roughly 5 times its footprint in Trump Tower. With ICBC's lease set to expire in 2019, according to the prospectus, it would have made sense if the bank departed Trump's building at that point. They didn't. But the Trump Tower lease was no longer a typical business deal. Trump was in the White House waging a massive trade war with China. Roughly $2 million of annual Trump Tower rent had turned into a constitutional concern, emoluments clause stuff, blah, blah, blah. 2021, when Joe Biden took office, the Chinese bank apparently came to the conclusion it was no longer the smartest idea to be renting space from Donald Trump. Representatives of ICBC and the Trump Organization did not respond to requests for comment on this story. Also, let's go to this guy. Chinese tycoon sought power and influence. Washington responded. Yi Jianming, that's the guy who paid the CEFC money that Comer and him are talking about, Rob Schitt are talking about. Yi Jianming courted the Biden family and networked with former United States security officials. Today, his empire is crashing down in court. Let's see. Soon he was meeting the family of Joe Biden, who was the vice president. He dined with James Woolsey Jr., former Central Intelligence Agency director. James Woolsey was one of the people that they first targeted for all this. That effort unraveled. Mr. Yi is in Chinese custody and is on an investigation for unspecified crimes. They pull people back and say they're investigating them for corruption to dirty up the people they were with. That's part of it, even though that person was sent to do a deal. The only corruption they were involved in a lot of times is just simply trying to escape the country. Lauren Boebert just announced she will be abandoning her constituents in Colorado 3 to run in a different district. Wow. That's fascinating. Is she being reassigned? Because her district was created last time. I don't know. Did they remap them? Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, this is a guy who courted and maintained networks with the People's Liberation Army and took the strategy of friends in high places. What became clear about Yi Jianming is that he is an incredibly adept navigator of politics. Blah, blah, blah. And then, let's see. Yi Jianming was a hero of the Chinese Communist Revolution. Marshal Yi, Mao once said, "Save the party, save the Red Army, and saved us." Many assuming Yi Jianming, the quiet but ambitious oil magnate, was Marshal Yi's grandson, but Yi denied it. Where's the part about him has a people who told Fortune magazine got his break in 2006. CFC operated in fringes of the oil world and focused on trading oil futures, blah, blah, blah. And then, where is it? He's got an apartment in Trump Tower. Last year, he turned 40, joined the ranks of China's super rich. He owned a 4-bedroom villa in Hong Kong, $35 million Gulfstream, and luxury apartments in Manhattan. Gee, where are those? Rosneft, blah, 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 or of being a rich advisor. So, he's bouncing around. Mr. Yi goes to Washington. 2015, met with Alan Greenspan. So he's bouncing around trying to be a show-off. That's how he got the deal with Biden, and that's how they thought it was real. He was meeting with all these people at the same time. Donating as much as $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation outside the Beltway. They donated $500K to the Columbia University Research Center. Winning Mr. Yi notice. So he's basically spreading his money around. Boutique banking firm, blah, blah, blah. The family, let's see, 2015, Mr. Yi began to work on perhaps his most politically connected quarry yet, the family of Mr. Biden, the vice president. He met Hunter Biden in Washington. Yi met privately with Hunter at a hotel in Miami in 2017. According to people with direct knowledge of the meeting who were not authorized to speak publicly because the meetings were private, Yi proposed a partnership to invest in American infrastructure and energy deals. During this period, they were doing Rosemont Seneca, an investment firm he formed with Chris Hines, and he had no knowledge of the CEFC and ended his relationship with Rosemont Seneca in 2015. It's unclear whether Hunter Biden struck any deals with CEFC or Mr. Yi through his attorney. He declined comment. He also tried to bring prominent Republicans into its orbit. 2014 memo after November mid-election, CFC outlined a plan for reaching out to top Republicans and politically connected people. The company should begin making that outreach as soon as possible, it said, in order to form a relationship and friend base. Suspicions and wiretaps, how he got busted, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, he owned a $5 million apartment. Let's see. October, China Central Television accused him of bribing a provincial party boss to help CEFC secure the money to make bigger and more high-profile deals. In Washington, many of Mr. Yi's acquaintances ultimately came to naught. In a brief interview, James Biden said he had been surprised by Mr. Ho's call. He said he believed that it was meant for Hunter Biden, the former vice president's son. James Biden said he had passed on his nephew's contact information. There's nothing else I have to say. I don't want to be dragged into this anymore. So that guy, Yi Jianming, this guy, let's see a picture of him real quick. This guy right here. It's this guy. He had a $5 million apartment, a no-show apartment in Trump Tower, Trump World Tower across from the UN. Beg your pardon. Start playing it. Wait, why'd the audio go out?
Intelligent to do it this way. You would delay it till after you leave because you needed that. You needed to cover up, right? You can't be taking in millions of dollars.
But you also can't give influence once you're outside of office. Again, this is just, I mean, if your complaint is that people shouldn't be able to lobby after they leave office, make that case. But that doesn't sound sexy. That's why they say deep state instead of bureaucrat.
Chinese while you're operating and working in the White House.
Yeah, a no-show apartment is literally you buy the place just as a financial hold, and you never move in. He owned this apartment in Trump Tower as an empty investment thing. So Trump got a $5 million vacant apartment in his building that if he wanted to talk the guy into selling it again or wanted to show that he didn't, that all of his buildings were full, that added, ammo to that argument.
Pretty clear, and yet they pulled this on everybody, and the media is pretending to just be that gullible.
Pretending to be that gullible. I see. So they're not really that gullible. They're just pretending to be that gullible. I see.
Yeah. Well, look, the China money,
China money.
know what triggered that. That's that WhatsApp message that the whistleblowers released, where Hunter Biden is sending the WhatsApp message to his Chinese national, implying that, look,
to his Chinese national. Is that like Trump's African American? Is that how Comer thinks it works? Do you just own people? Is that the idea?
we did all this stuff when Dad was vice president. You're supposed to pay up now that
Yeah, that's not what it said at all.
he left office. My dad's sitting beside me. If you don't send that money, then you're
Didn't Trump complain about like people paraphrasing his statements and making up context?
feel the full rage of the Biden family and the U.S. federal government. I mean, that
The what? I gotta say that's not what that WhatsApp said. The federal government. How the fuck is the former vice president going to bring down the power of the federal government on anybody?
how blatant the Bidens were. That's extortion.
Okay, stupid. First of all, you can't be bribed by the people who are extorting you or extort the people who are bribing you. It doesn't work that way. So if the Chinese own the Bidens, then the idea that they can extort the people who are bribing them is just dumb. What are you talking about? And nobody has influence if they have to threaten somebody. You didn't get anything for it. Oh, God.
The president's son extorted the Chinese national.
And then they bribed him with blackmail that they used to control the extorted to like he was like, you better give me some money. And they're like, okay, I don't know where I'm going to get the money. How about I bribe you? You give me the money and I'll give it back to you. What the ever-loving shit is this?
Our biggest enemy on the planet claimed his dad was
No. I would argue Russia, Iran, and North Korea well ahead of China as far as enemies go. That said, maybe it's a deep pocket enemy, but Jesus Christ, man, you have deals with the Chinese.
him. Who knows if he was beside him or not? That's a question that you would think a journalist would ask in the
I don't care. He wasn't even in office. Even the WhatsApp message was after he was out of office and before he was running.
room, but they haven't. And you mentioned the pitiful nature of the press corps. There was a story in Politico Day that the morale is low at the Washington Post. They've had to lay off 10% of the workforce. The morale should be low. They produce junk. What they print is inaccurate. It's incorrect, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And no one's going to do business.
Okay, you got to be careful there, Comer, because these guys shit on the mainstream media and the legacy media all the time, but they do nothing but cite them as sources to like support their own arguments constantly.
An inferior product. They produce an inferior product, and as a result,
And if anybody knows an inferior product, it's me.
their morale is going to continue to go down because nobody's going to pay for their paper.
Just to give people an analogy to that, I mean, if these same people that are covering
dear.
Biden corruption were covering a murder trial, Here's how they would have to cover these.
Okay, I can't wait. All right, smoking guns. Let's see. There is a pile. There's one body with a single bullet hole in it, and it's buried under a pile of smoking guns. All the chambers are empty, and it turns out the person died from a bullet-shaped stab wound. Go.
Oh, they found the guy. He had the gun. His fingerprints were on the gun. He was covered in blood. But police asked him if he killed.
What did he do? Fucking beat the guy to death with the gun? It was a mad pistol whipping.
Person. He said no. So, it seemed pretty obvious that he didn't kill the person despite all the evidence. That's how they're covering this.
Okay, asshat. One thing. In your analogy, the person would have to not be dead at the time of the murder and died months later of unrelated causes, and the gun the person was holding was pointed the wrong way, wasn't loaded, and the smoke that was coming off of it was just steam because the room was hot.
One final question to you.
Please let it be one final question. Just never have this dumb ass on again. Not that I don't enjoy ripping his idiotic arguments to shreds. It's just fucking tiresome.
And it's about Chuck Grassley,
who is older than anyone.
I very much respect.
Everybody, you better respect me, mister, because I'm a farmer. I run on ethanol. I drink a gallon a day, mister. That's right. I coat all ends of myself with Vaseline, chortle down a gallon of ethanol, and I go to work.
He is saying that he has seen no evidence of Joe Biden doing anything wrong. But he also said there's no indication he said that there is indication of compromise, specifically with China.
Yeah, because China wanted the CHIPS Act. Because that was your idea, dumb shit. The Republicans just didn't want the CHIPS Act, never came up with it on their own, certainly didn't do it during the Trump administration. There's no reason why they couldn't have. Is there anything that changed materially in the political environment or the awareness of China using technology that they were stealing for their military, or them stealing an intellectual property? Is any of that new during the entire Trump presidency? Why wouldn't they have passed the CHIPS Act just during that period, even during the trade war?
But he says he just doesn't have any evidence of it. But at the same time, he says there's no evidence that Joe Biden at this point has done anything wrong. What is going on with Chuck Grassley?
How about this? What's going on with you whippersnapper? You don't know the difference between evidence and information.
Well, it's a lot of senators, Rob. I mean, the senators are sending messages loud and clear, trying to spook the moderate Republicans. They don't want any part of an impeachment trial. I don't know if it's because they think we've got Biden on the ropes.
No. Asshole, he wrote 1,000 pages of memos about Hunter Biden's, the Hunter Biden laptop story. This asshole isn't in the tank for Joe Biden, dum-dum.
They see what the Democrats are doing to Trump. I think that what the Democrats did in Colorado this week will probably backfire, and Donald Trump's liable to carry Colorado now.
Yeah, no.
I think it'll backfire that much. And I think there are a lot of senators.
No, he won't.
These senators are smarter than the representatives. And I like Chuck Grassley too, but it's not just Grassley. You've heard Lindsey Graham say stuff this week. Obviously, Romney, McConnell, all these guys.
Republicans.
They're like, all right, well, we'll let the American people decide. That's not the way I see it. I see impeachable offenses.
Yeah. There aren't any. So why should I give a shit what you, quote, see?
The fact that there's been not only countless crimes by the Biden family, there's been a cover-up by our federal government. And people.
A cover-up of what? How can the federal government cover up stuff that didn't involve a federal employee or federal crimes of any sort? How? They're not even state crimes to cover up here. I don't understand.
to be held accountable. We're going to keep moving forward, but these senators are making it very difficult.
I thought that.
Yeah, they're making it difficult. Not so you're overwhelmed with evidence. You just don't have it on you, I guess.
I thought that they're kind of pretending because there's not, there's not like, it's not on video of him handing or taking money from the Chinese. Maybe they're saying, we don't want the political liability of an impeachment because it can maybe buoy Joe Biden up. They don't want that. So I thought maybe that might be the reasoning too. Congressman, I got to leave it there.
Or they've seen the evidence too. They dug as hard as they could and they never hit anything. It was always quicksand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. It's so good to be here as an Apple person who has escaped from the fair. Let me open up the chat real quick. Hi, everybody, real quick. Hello. By the way, hit that like and subscribe. Look at that, just blazing chat room. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of the conversations that happened in there. Look at that. Look, I just a raging conversation. Where are you from? What do you do for a living? I should just make it where I can't hear you. Where are the super chats? Let's go. Excellent. Hello. And then it stops, so it slows down for a second. It's like, I'm running out of letters. There's a big announcement tomorrow that the internet ran out of letters because of Hal Sparks' chat. I believe that's a possibility, and I'm not ashamed at all.